Hi, I'm Charlie Mato-Toyela with Bear Flutes and bluebearflutes.com, where you'll find some of the best Native American flutes at the best prices on our website, www.bluebearflutes.com. That's www.bluebearflutes.com. You can skip the www and type in bluebearflutes.com. It'll still come up. So anyway, oh, and don't forget to check out my Instagram. Oh my gosh, please check out Instagram. You can check out our Facebook. It's kind of okay sometimes, but Instagram's really where it's at, in my opinion. You'll find some videos on there. Sometimes you'll find some live things that we do, and sometimes you'll find some really amazing pictures of places we've been and things we do and places that we play our flutes and make flutes with people and do all kinds of stuff. So anyway, today's video is just a real quick kind of an answer to a question that I get often. I have other videos for this, but I thought that maybe making a shorter one might, and you all are thinking, with that intro, how's this going to be short? But with a little bit shorter video to maybe answer this question a little bit easier for people to understand. And that is, when and what should I do to take care of my flute? Well, that kind of depends. If your flute is covered in lacquer, I would not use oil. I would recommend asking your flute maker, because it probably wasn't me. It's been a long time since I've lacquered a flute. It's kind of like against my thing. I just don't do that. But if it's lacquered, you may not want to put any oil on it. Oil will remove, in most cases, lacquer, unless it's oil-based lacquer, which is what I used to use. Still against it though. But it will remove most lacquers. It thins them. It makes them flake and come up. So you want to ask your flute maker, what should you do? Now, I will tell you that as long as the flute isn't lacquered inside, which there are 2 or 3 flute makers that do that today, you can usually put oil inside of it. Putting oil inside of the flute is actually kind of a good thing, because it helps to fill the pores inside of the flute. As long as you don't get much of it or wipe it off quickly off of the outside of your lacquered flute, then it should survive. If your flute isn't lacquered, if it has a oil finish of some sort or a wax finish of some sort, then yeah, by all means, I would definitely oil and wax it. How often should you do this? This is a question that people ask me all the time. And honestly, you can see, I know you can in the camera because I've got enough lights on me here that you can probably see the shine on this flute. I haven't oiled this flute in a while, but because I've ordered a bunch like this one, you can typically see some of the shine. Now this one here has been beat and banged and it's seen a lot of road, okay? So it may not be as shiny as that other one, which usually sits on the shelf. But this flute here still has kind of a patina that's built up on it from using oil regularly. I don't use it, recently, because it basically it's got so much patina built up on it, and the oil inside of it has protected the flute in such a way that only so much more oil can really go into it. And that's the thing. When should you do this? Well, like this flute here has a tiny shine on it, but it is feeling a little dry to me. I can feel it with my fingers, and it feels like rubbing my hand across a piece of paper, okay? And that's usually a good time to take care of it. What kind of oil should you use? You know, this one's probably been 2-3 months since I have put any oil on it. You may have seen me make this in a video. I think it may have been a live stream. It's still up on YouTube. But either which way, I was making this flute, and this is one I made out of a flute kit that a customer had sent to me that he had some complaints about or what have you. This is my favorite flute I have ever made. I mean, it's been 2 months and it's already passed everybody else. I love this flute. It's really something else. This totem I did not make. One of my friends who started off as a customer made this totem and sent it to me based on our design that you can download off the website here, off our info page. But he made this totem and sent it to me, and I absolutely love it. So I thought, hey, this is a good flute to put it on. Anyway, this flute is, you can hear it, listen. It sounds like it's time for it to be oiled. In a lot of cases, I'd recommend taking the block off. If you're afraid of tying it back on, I do have a video on how to tie a flute block back on, but you don't have to take it off. It's just recommended in best practices. This is olive oil. Originally, I used a mineral oil mixture on this. And we do have a video talking about using beeswax, and I've actually shown in the end of several of my flute making videos, but we have a video on using beeswax here recently that talks about Native people using it for a number of different things. We've had some people question whether Natives ever had bees, and if you ever wonder if Native people had a bee, then please watch that video and definitely follow the links that are in the description. But anyway, so beeswax is a good product to put on here, but beeswax is kind of hard. So what I recommend is mixing beeswax. You have to kind of heat it up. Once again, it's a little dangerous, so I have a video on that too. You can mix it with some oil, and it makes a little bit more lasting finish. But this is straight olive oil. Olive oil, good stuff. The reason it's good stuff is because it doesn't go bad. Some oils, like vegetable oils, I guess there's a handful of other oils, like walnut oil, some flute makers recommend because it doesn't go bad. I have personally eaten walnut shells before in capsule form because they helped me with something I needed to take them for. You can actually get them at a herbologist, herb store. I don't recommend necessarily that you take them. You know, it's between you and your doctor or whoever, your witch doctor or whatever it is that you use. But that's something to consider. People do historically eat or consume, I guess I could say, walnut shells. So that's something you can do. Tongue nut oil. Now, tongue oil, I guess many of you may not know, it comes from a nut. My dad and I actually went and collected tongue nuts before. My dad did a lot of things. We did all kinds of stuff together. But he told me that tongue nuts are not really good for people to eat. And because of that, I have always stayed away from tongue oil. I've never used it on a flute. The only things I use on flutes are things that I would eat. So walnut oil would be one of those. Another friend has recently recommended I use citrus oil, which sounds kind of nice. I do know that citrus, being acidic, may cause some kind of changes with the flute, whereas this stuff is mildly basic. I mean, it's kind of borderline. I know scientists out there are going to tell me it's acidic, but whatever. Olive oil, mineral oil, doesn't go bad. It doesn't have things in it that can allow bacterial growth. Now, if you use, or if you're just dead set on using some other type of oil that is one that, which I have in the past, by the way, that can go bad, one thing you can consider is using a natural preservative in there with it. Like we used to use tea tree oil. And adding those kind of things together, some people have allergies to tea tree oil, so we kind of laid back off of that a bit for our flutes. The tea tree oil inhibits bacterial growth. So that's something good to consider. Olive oil, for example, not only do we consume it, we cook with it. Some people drink it straight. I mean, I'm not here to give advice. People, even native people and African people, Egyptian people, so many different cultures use oil on their skin, you know, so that's something to consider. Native people even used animal fat, which, depending on how it's treated, may or may not go rancid. But there's a lot of things to consider there. Like I say, with regards to putting an additive in your oil, you have to consider, is it natural, is it safe? Tea tree oils in so much these days. I have it in most of my shampoo, a lot of my cleaners. I've got a little bar of tea tree oil soap that I take to the gym with me because I love using that stuff. It's really the best in my opinion. But some people may be hypersensitive to it. So we've, like I said, kind of laid back on that. That having been said, olive oil, nothing wrong with that. If your flute is looking a little dry, if it sounds like paper, like rubbing your fingers on paper, I would recommend getting a little bit of this stuff, wiping it on there. So you can do this a number of different ways. You can use a cloth, you can wear gloves. People in my shop wear gloves when they apply oil. I don't, because I kind of need that on my hands sometimes, but my gosh, look at the difference in shine just from adding a little bit of oil. Now the thing about olive oil is it is not very viscous. If you watch, that drop was really slow as far as a drop goes. Like if you got a drop of water on your finger, it goes like that. But with olive oil is not very viscous. It's kind of thick. It doesn't travel really fast in the realm of what we're accustomed to. It smells good too. But so it takes a minute for it to soak in. I would recommend standing it up on something if you can help it. If you lean it against anything, keep in mind that the oil will soak into cloth. It'll get on your clothes and it may not wash out. A lot of things to think about there. And with regards to How long should you wait? You can kind of tell when you see it. And then additionally, you know, if you want to wipe it off with a lint-free cloth, or even use something like this is a paper towel. You know, you can wipe it off with that. It's already soaked up probably as much olive oil as it's going to soak up on the outside. And wiping it off like that, that's, you know, pretty clothing friendly and safe at that point. Still has a little darker appearance. It's still shinier than it was, and most importantly, the olive oil soaked into the pores. That's the critical thing. Something else, now this flute has some sound holes. If you go back and watch the video where I made this one, it has some sound holes in it, so I'm going to cover those up with my hand. But if you pour just a little bit, I guess I should play it for you first. I don't know if you'll hear the difference in the video, but I will tell you I can hear the difference when I play it. It sounds a little dry to me. You know, it's not bad, but I'm going to pour a little bit inside of the flute. Now, you may not want to use a saucer to do that. That may not be the best solution for you, but it works. And there again, I'm looking for, I'll tell you the truth, the reason I have a saucer is because I didn't want to dirty any other dishes. You know, I wanted to be kind of quick and cheap and just kind of scrub it out by hand after I'm done. So, but anyway, you can pour it in there, look, see that it ran down to the bottom, which is actually the top, but if I'm facing downwards here, it's to the bottom. And then you can turn it upside down and let it drip on something until all of it drips out. One recommendation, try not to let the oil get under the block. It's fine if it happens, but if it gets under the block, it's going to gurgle for a moment. If that happens, put your finger over the sound hole and blow kind of hard, and it usually gets most of it out. One other recommendation I would make is to turn the flute upside down so that the oil that is on this trail that it followed back here finds its way to the other side of the flute. So now instead of just being on one side of the flute inside, it's on the other side of the flute as well. After you do that, you might find that the drips make a good wipe. Usually in the shop, we pour it inside first. Whatever runs out is what we wipe the outside with. But then again, you can run it around, turn it around in circles, let it fill up all the pores inside of the flute. And I'm going to wipe it off, and then I'm going to put this paper towel under it while I play so I don't make a mess on my good tablecloth. And then I'll let you see if you can hear the difference. You may not hear it in the video, but in person, I promise you it's night and day. Like I said, I've been doing this for a minute. So really made a big difference in sound for me. Something else that I'll tell you that may be a good, I guess, diagnostic tool for you. This flute, if you go back and watch a video where I made it, it's been a couple of, I guess about probably 8 or 10 videos back from the time this one comes out. Anyway, it had a knot back here that I sealed with super glue. So sealing that knot was a great idea, but sometimes knots may, due to temperature or whatever, kind of wiggle their way loose, and putting that oil inside of it helps them fill up the size of their crack that they have there again, and that really does help to preserve not just the flute, but the knot itself as well. So anyway, you know, I hope this really answers your question about when should you do it. It's kind of like, you know, as often as it seems like it's necessary. I will tell you, over time, it gets to where they really don't need it after a while, because they've soaked up about as much oil. Even if you're using mineral oil, which is much thinner than this olive oil, mineral oil only soaks up so far, and then the flute stays pretty well shiny from then on out. So like I say, this is something that, you know, historically, Native people, a lot of people of the world have used oil to protect their wood, their leather, their whatever. Numbers of things that they've used to protect it with like that, and really it makes a big difference. So hopefully that answers that question of how often should I oil my flute or wax my flute. If you use wax on it, oil first, wax second. That way it has a chance to soak up some of the oil, and then you can cover it with the wax to help kind of seal it in. That's what we do in the shop. But after playing it for a while, the oil and wax does tend to rub off, wear off, melt off. You know, it does a lot of things. Most importantly, just consider what your flute is covered in. If it's been lacquered, may not be a good idea. Ask your flute maker. And also, don't let it drip on anything. That's like the second most important thing. Or if you have a flute that's natural, like the flutes that we make, then the most important thing is don't let it drip on something. So this should answer the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And hopefully that will aid everyone who needs to know. And keep in mind, like I said, olive oil is edible. It does not go bad, and it is used on cutting boards, among other things. So it's been used historically on wooden spoons, wooden forks, wooden knives, wooden utensils, and then on top of it, it's put on the food that we use the wood utensils with. So something to consider. So anyway, I hope this helps to answer those questions. And of course, if you have any others, please feel free to post them in the comments. I always appreciate that. If you use a different type of oil, that's absolutely cool. Some other people might like to know about that. Feel free to post that as well. We always like to share information. As long as it's positive and good information, those negative and bad things we don't really have to have if we can get away with it. So once again, Charlie Mato-Toyela signing out for Blue Bear Flutes and bluebearflutes.com. Don't forget us here, Blue Bear Flutes on YouTube. We hope to see you again really soon. Y'all take care.